So I've worked at one of the biggest international law firms in the world, and it did mean long hours and very little time for anything else. But unlike most people that seem to work these demanding corporate jobs, I have managed to keep myself in top shape without having to sacrifice my career and without having to spend hours in the gym that I just don't have. So if you are someone that thinks working a full-time job means sacrificing your health and fitness, think again. Because in this video, I'm going to set out exactly how I make it all work. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is get our mindset right towards diet and exercise. And I think when you are working these stressful and long corporate jobs, it is just very easy to fall into bad habits when it does come to our diet and exercise. And I know that is exactly what happened to me. And that is someone who has always been pretty active and healthy in life. But when I first started working at a law firm, I did just fall into these bad habits. I mean, when it came to food at lunchtime, I always just thought I had to be in a massive hurry and get back to my work as quickly as possible. And so I basically just wound up trying to find some food at somewhere that was as close to the office as possible. Like, I often used to go to Leon and I would just get these wraps and these potato fries that were basically just filled with loads of crap calories. I also found that I was constantly missing gym sessions more regularly. Like, it would get to the evening and I just wouldn't have the energy to go, or I couldn't be bothered to get up in the morning, and I was missing lots of exercise sessions. And over the course of the first 6 months or so of working at a law firm, I was putting on weight, I was getting weaker in the gym, I was getting less fit, and essentially I was just not giving these areas the priority that they deserved. And that right there, I think, is the problem, because when you don't give these things the priority, they will just start to fall to the wayside. And so when it does come to diet and exercise, these need to be absolutely non-negotiables for you. No matter how busy your job may be or how stressful it may be, they need to be absolute priorities for you. And of course, you're gonna have some days where you do fuck up and you eat something a little bit rubbish or you miss a gym session. But these really need to be the exception instead of the rule. And I just see it so often with people in the office. Like, it completely baffles me how some people basically just seem like they don't exercise at all, and how it baffles me as well how crap some people's diets are. Like, they're constantly just eating these massively calorie meals filled with carbs and fats that's just not doing themselves any favors. And so I really do mention this step first, because if you don't get your mindset right and you don't make health, exercise and fitness a part of your identity, a part of who you are, then you won't succeed in making them a real part of your life. No matter how good your intentions may be or how good any plans that you come up with that we're going to talk about are. So please, do not underestimate this step and make sure you get that mindset right. Okay, so moving on, and now we are going to talk about diet itself and what we can do around our diet. And when it comes to developing a good physique, diet is the most important thing. You can be doing all the right things in terms of your exercise, but if your diet is not on point, you just won't develop that physique that you are looking for. And that's another thing that I see all the time. I see guys in the gym, guys that are in there regularly, seemingly doing all the right things when it comes to the exercise portion, but they still just look pretty rubbish. Like, often they are just kind of overweight or not making any of the sort of strength gains that they want to. And the reason for that must therefore be that they are just getting the diet completely wrong. So the first thing that we need to do, which I do think is very important, is to work out what our maintenance level of calories is. And so that is the amount of calories that you need to eat each day to maintain your body weight. And in terms of how we do this, we will need to track our calories. And there's a bunch of different apps that you can use to do that. But the app that I like to use, and the one that I do think is very good, is MyFitnessPal, where you can just track everything that you're eating and it will show you the amount of calories for each thing that you are eating. Then in terms of the calories themselves, there is just one macronutrient that I recommend focusing on. So your macronutrients are your carbs, fats and protein, but the only one that I would focus on is protein. And protein is so important when it comes to recovery and building lean muscle. And so that is the one to focus on. And my recommendation would be to try to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you would target trying to eat 200 grams of protein every day. So once we've done this, we will know what our daily calorie target should be and also what our protein target is. But the difficult thing, particularly whilst working a full-time job, is how do we actually hit these targets on a consistent basis? And when it comes to our diet, my big recommendation would be to try to just make it so that you basically don't have to think about it as much as possible while still making sure that you will hit your targets. So my first recommendation here would be to do intermittent fasting. And there's different versions of fasting that you can do, but the version that I like to do and the version that I do think is best if you're working is the 16-8 method, which is basically where you fast for 16 hours and then you have an 8-hour eating window. And the reason that I love intermittent fasting so much is simply for the convenience factor. It means I don't have to think about anything in the morning, and there's a time-saving element to that, which is very nice. And then it also does mean that when I actually come to eat, I can eat much bigger, substantive type meals that will fill me up and keep me energized for longer. And it prevents me then going to pick on like junky, rubbish type snacks. And so I really love it for that reason. And I've been doing intermittent fasting for about 5 years now, and I do really think it's been a massive game changer for me. The next thing that I think is very crucial to do is to meal prep. And I can already hear some of you say that that's more work again, and I'm just not gonna have enough time to meal prep every weekend. But what I would suggest here is to just meal prep 2 meal variations and make enough of those 2 meals that will cover your 5 lunches throughout the week. So essentially what that will look like is that 1 meal you'll make enough of for 3 lunches, and then the other meal you'll make enough to cover your other 2 lunches. And by doing that, it should only really take you about 1 hour of meal prepping at the weekend, and everyone's got enough time for that. Doing this also means that I'm basically removing any of that decision fatigue when it comes to lunchtime. And again, when you are working, a stressful job and time is a bit of the essence, the last thing you want to really be thinking about is exactly what I am going to have for lunch. And so by having all your meals ready to go, you know that you've got your healthy option right there for you. So for me, I basically have 250 grams of rice, and then I will normally have either a chicken or beef as my protein source, and then a bunch of vegetables, and that will be my lunch meal. And then I have pretty much the same snacks every day. I usually have a protein bar, a protein shake, a pot of cottage cheese, and then I have these rice cracker things I eat as well. And that then means that the only thing that I really have to think about in terms of my diet is what I'm gonna have for the evening. And because I know that I've pretty much already hit my protein target, I kind of know that I can basically eat whatever I want for dinner, as long as I'm keeping my overall calorie amount within my daily calorie target. And the next thing that we do need to focus on is exercise. And the first thing that I can hear a lot of you talk about when it comes to exercise is that you just don't have time for it and you just can't fit it in to your busy schedule. But that is not correct. And basically, when we're working a full-time job, our options to exercise are either morning, lunchtime, or in the evenings. And our first recommendation here would be that if you are someone that is working a very long hours intensive job and you're regularly working late into the evenings, I would just rule out going in the evenings. I think because your hours are quite unpredictable and you don't always know how late you're going to be working into the evenings, it's very easy to say plan a session in the evening, but then some work comes in and you wind up working late and you just wind up missing that session, and that can happen way too regularly and you just miss way too many sessions. If you are someone that finishes more regular hours, you finish more 5, 6 p.m. and you like going in the evening, then of course you can go in the evenings and you can do that. But for a lot of people, particularly if you're working those long, late hours, I would avoid the evening. My big recommendation then would be to gym in the mornings, because in the morning, you do have complete control pretty much over your time. I mean, you can pretty much guarantee every morning that you can go and do some form of exercise. If you're not a morning person and you also struggle to go in the evenings, then lunchtime is your option. And lunchtime definitely is also an option. You can absolutely block out 1 to 2 hours at lunchtime and just make sure that meetings or nothing else goes in at those times. Even if you're working a super stressful job, you can still have that time because lunchtime is your time. And so the key point here is that no matter what job you're doing, no matter how busy it is, no matter how stressful, there definitely is some point in the day that you can go and exercise. And you just need to figure out which of those parts is going to work out and be best for you. All right, so now we have figured out that we do have enough time to exercise, but what exercise should we actually be doing? And my recommendation would be to do a 6-day exercise split with 3 days of weight training and 3 days of cardio. And I know when I say 6 days of exercise every week, To some of you, that might just seem completely ridiculous and completely unrealistic. But all I think you need to do is for your weight training sessions to do 40 minutes or more if you want, and for your cardio sessions to do 30 minutes or more if you want. But basically, 40 minutes and 30 minutes is all you need to be doing. And that is surely time that all of you do have. I also know that when it comes to weight training, for some of you that might seem a little bit intimidating. You might not really have any experience weight training, and it might just be something you've never really considered doing. But weight training is so important. It helps to build muscle, burn fat, and there's also so much data coming out now about how important weight training is when it comes to longevity. So no matter what age you are, no matter what sex you are, no matter how much experience you have with weight training, it definitely is something that you should be doing. And since I'm suggesting doing 3 days of weight training, what I would suggest to do is a push, pull, legs split. So on your push day, that would be doing chest, shoulders, triceps. Pull day would be back and biceps. And then you do legs, so that would be all of your lower body. For your cardio sessions, I would then basically just recommend doing whatever form of cardio you enjoy. So that could be your traditional running, cycling, swimming, or it could just be playing paddle tennis or playing squash or Sunday league football. Like whatever it is, it can just be something that you enjoy. As long as you're doing it for 30 minutes or more, that's all you need to do. But just make sure you get those 3 sessions in of 30 minutes or longer. And then I've got 2 more tips when it comes to exercise. And so the first is that I would really recommend trying to plan out all of your sessions in advance. That way you know clearly what you're going to be doing, and then each month you can just review how things are going and make any adjustments as needed to your program. And then my final tip, which you probably would have heard before, but it is to try and hit 10,000 steps a day. And because you do actually have to walk fairly far to hit that target, and I do just find there is a massive difference between days where I barely move from my desk and do like 2,000-3,000 steps, and then my more consistent days when I am walking 10,000 or more steps. I mean, I just feel way better on those days where I am moving regularly. And I do find hitting that step count regularly is also an easy way to keep some of the weight off and keep you more lean. So definitely a top tip there. So there you have it. Those are my top tips to be consistent with your diet and exercise in order to maintain a fantastic physique whilst still working a full-time job. I hope you found this video useful, and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.